Hello, my name is Chris Clark from the Caneb Center at the University of Notre Dame. My goal today is to persuade you to explore using serious games. You'll notice that your handout is a sort of game. You're going to collect coins as you proceed through the session, and I'm going to ask you some questions. This is going to be on the honor system, and it's definitely not a skill game. It's really not fair or anything like that. It's just an attempt to try to gamify the session a little bit here today. The winner will get a copy of a book, and so let's start out by giving yourself 3 coins if you attended a women's basketball game this year. I told you it wasn't going to be fair. Now, I'm not a video gamer. I really don't have any patience for games like Halo or World of Warcraft. I can't spend the time. But I do enjoy games. I've tried, you can see an example of a game there. I tried Pocket Frogs on the iPad and I got sucked in. It was really hard for me to get away from it. Finally, I deleted the game off the iPad. I'm also not, as you can see the game console there, I'm not a game console type of person either. But I'd like you to give yourself a coin right now for every hour you spend, average, on a day playing a game on a computer or a console. I do like different kinds of games. In my family, Scrabble was a sort of a rite of passage. When I was able to defeat my oldest brother, that's me with the little blue arrow there, it was quite a thing for me. We also played a lot of Monopoly and other board games. Of course, back in the Stone Age there we didn't have computer games. And I also like card games. You can see a hand on the bottom right there of euchre, and if you know anything about euchre, that is about the worst hand you can possibly have in euchre. So give yourself 3 coins if you have a paper board game in your room, apartment, or home, depending on where you are right now as a student or a faculty member or any other sort of person. If you have a board game, give yourself 3 coins. If you played euchre in the past 7 days, give yourself 5 coins. I'd like to make 3 main points today. One is that learning is central to games. You can't really separate learning from the idea of playing games. The second point is that there are good games out there, and more are coming. And the third point is you can do this. You can build games or use games in your own classes. I'd like you to listen for a second to a video by Katie Salen, who's the organizer of a school called Quest to Learn, and she's also written a wonderful book about games. All of these videos are on the web page that will give you information about if you want to watch the entire thing later on. Learning is central to games. It involves things like problem solving, analytical thinking, strategic thinking, planning and execution, making decisions, following clear goals, spending time on task. One of the really cool things that Katie alluded to was that there's a low consequence for failure in a game. There's no grade, no one gets hurt, typically, right? Now, learning is not always fun. You notice the fun there, and that can be a sore subject for people, but I really do think that learning could be fun more often than it is. What's my job? My job right now is to help faculty use technology. Not all games involve a lot of high technology, but I'm very interested in this whole idea of games. And what I try to do is help faculty find out what the tools are that are available in technology, some of the effective strategies that can improve learning, that can enhance learning, and to reduce the barriers to adopting technology like lack of skill or time and so forth. Give yourself 3 coins if you've ever attended a workshop sponsored by the Teaching Center at your college or university. We started a serious games learning community at Notre Dame. It's kind of gearing up. The past school year has gone fairly slowly, but one of our good projects that we did was to read The Art of Game Design, a wonderful book by Jesse Schell. We would mix meetings with gameplay, and we also began a bit of a blog about serious games. If you're a member of our serious games community or an analogous group where you are, give yourself 5 coins. Now, I'm not going to read through all of these, but there are some common elements in all games. Not all games, but these are the common elements that run across games. Not every game has all of these, is the point I'd like to make. So typically games have some kind of tools, whether it's cards in a card game, a baseball, a board that you play the game on, or a computer. But hide and seek, there are no tools. It's just people and the game rules. Competition is usually an element, right? There's a winner, there are losers, there are scores, there are levels, but there are collaborative games where the way you win is you beat the game, you complete the game. Enjoyment is usually a product of games. They're fun, they're typically non-productive, but serious games, which is what we're talking about today, also fit the bill of games. You can look at the other elements later on if you'd like. Now, James G. has been looking at the idea of games for quite a long time, and he's written a number of wonderful books. This one that you see in the illustration here is the latest, and you can see he's going to come to Notre Dame and speak. I'd like to have you listen to a little bit about him talking about the idea of games and learning.
And also where you can innovate with the tools you learned and not just do standard solutions to problems. That's where we're going to go, and that's one of the reasons people learn video games and related technologies, because again, they put you into worlds where you have to solve problems. I mean, all a video game is problem solving. It's just a series of, if you think about it, in some weird way, a video game is just an assessment. All you do is get assessed every moment as you try to solve a problem, and if you don't solve it, the game says you failed. Try again, and then you solve it, and then you have a boss, which is a test, and you pass the test. I mean, games essentially are a form of assessment, the thing that is probably the most painful, ludicrous part of schooling. But in a game, it's a lot of fun, right? Because it's handled in a very different way.
So give yourself 3 coins if you've ever read an entire book about teaching and learning. Give yourself 5 coins if you've read a book about games. Got a little lost there for a second. So there are good games. Good games have to do with learning. There are good games. There's a number of them. And in fact, the Horizon report, which many of you may follow, this year said that game-based learning is one of the big technologies that is on its way that will have a great impact on teaching and learning. Within the next 2 to 3 years, we should start to see even more of that happening. The game on the bottom right there is an example of an augmented reality game, which is sort of a high-tech new type of game. Here's a couple of games that folks at the University of Notre Dame have been using in our College of Business. The City 1 game that you see there is a game that IBM developed. IBM has spent quite a bit of time developing a couple of really good serious games, and this is the latest one in the 2 of those games. On the bottom right, you see the screen capture from the MIT beer game. The MIT beer game has been out there for quite a long time and has been very popular, again, in business classes. Give yourself 5 coins if you, as a teacher, have led a game that lasted for an entire class period. Here's a couple of games, a couple other games that have been played at Notre Dame. On the top here you see a picture, actually this is one game. On the top you see a photograph of this game. This is a business simulation of the Chicago Board of Trade. The photo shows the students involved in the game. It's a very active physical game where they're using pieces of paper and so forth. On the bottom is the computer program that one of my colleagues here developed to help keep track of what the students are doing in the game. So in this case, the game is not so much a computer game, but the computer is used to sort of make the game go more easily. Here are some games that you can actually play online. Wolf Quest is a simulation of sort of playing the role of a wolf, and there's a little video that I'll show in a second. Darfur is Dying is a game that is attempting to raise awareness about the crisis in Darfur. Here's a little bit about the Wolf Quest game. And I took that video out. Well, you can see that video at the Wolf Quest website. Gamification is the idea of applying game elements to non-game activities. And here's a couple of examples of vendors who are using game-like techniques. So you have the Coke rewards, where you can earn points by buying Coke products and collecting them and exchanging those for rewards. Similarly, the Starbucks company has a rewards program where you can every time you spend something at Starbucks on your card, you can earn these rewards, and gradually you'll get a cup of coffee or different kinds of things. On the bottom right, you see an example of a game called Epic Win, and it's an idea of that you want to gamify your to-do list. And so in this case, you get points for doing things that you're supposed to do already. So you can see do push-ups there, investigate a particular topic that you're interested in, send a birthday card. So you get points for doing each of those, and gradually the game gives you rewards. Give yourself 3 coins if you've ever collected any of these types of reward points and actually earn something from them. Jane McGonigal is an interesting individual from the Institute for the Future. Recently published a book called Reality is Broken, about games and how she believes that they can change the world. She's called the public face of gamification. And she was involved very deeply in this game called Evoke. Let's have her tell us just a little bit about it.
So finally, the last game. We're launching it March 3rd. This is a game done with the World Bank Institute. If you complete the game, you will be certified by the World Bank Institute as a social innovator, class of 2010. We're working with universities all over sub-Saharan Africa, and we are inviting them to learn social innovation skills. We've got a graphic novel. We've got leveling up in skills like local insight, knowledge networking, sustainability, vision, and resourcefulness. I would like to invite all of you to please share this game with young people anywhere in the world, particularly in developing areas.
So this is another example of a good game that is out there, and there are just tons of these games. You can do this. You can use a game in your classroom, or you can create games. You can take existing games and modify them. And there are places that are just anxious to help you. At Notre Dame, our Caneb Center would love to work with you to choose a game or even long-term develop a game. Here's some more examples of wonderful games that are out there, and these you'll see listed on the website for this presentation. Now, one of the things that we've explored a little bit is using Second Life, the virtual world, as an infrastructure for gaming. And so you can see on the bottom here a couple of things that we worked on with our library regarding library skills. So this is just one way that a game could be created on the computer in an existing environment. These are proof of concept games. Up on the top right is a game that was created elsewhere that has to do with nutrition. Give yourself 5 coins if right now you have a great idea for a serious game. So what's the low-hanging fruit? Where could you start? How could you think about serious games and what might be a good topic for a serious game? Well, I think that one of the first things is tasks that students avoid, tasks that students just don't want to do. Those kinds of things, if you can gamify them, if you can put them in the context of a game, they'll be much more interesting to the students. Likewise, things that students find difficult from your point of view, these kinds of things, if you can get students concepts that students find difficult and put them into a framework of a game, students will spend more time, and perhaps you can explain it in a way through the medium of the game that will find it where students will find it easier to master those concepts. And a third topic, a third piece of low-hanging fruit, you notice there's 3 fruits there, an example would be a high-risk situation, one where the activity that you want to accomplish is dangerous, or perhaps it's one that might be too expensive to accomplish, or maybe one where the materials that you would need to do the activity are really hard to come by. So doing these things on a computer, for example, or through a game might make them easier to accomplish. Start small and build, and I think that you will find that you'll be able to take advantage of the game strategy. Give yourself 10 coins right now if you plan to explore using serious games. So to summarize, learning is central to games, problem solving and so forth. Good games exist. You've seen illustrations of a number of them, and more, count on it, are on the way. And finally, you can do this. You can use games as they are, you can adapt games, or you can create your own, modify them. Thanks for coming. Feel free to explore the website, and I'm glad that you've taken advantage of this.